Hello and welcome to Worst Quality Crab, a podcast of Asian American stories and recipes from best quality hearts. I'm your host, Freesia Lee. Joining me as always is my husband and producer, Sam.
Hello.
On this episode, we are very excited to have her author, speaker, leadership coach. What doesn't she do? Her memoir, Sun Shining on Morning Snow, traces her journey through identity, loss, and the courage to live boldly. We love it. She is a leadership and grief coach who identifies as Hapa and queer. Ingrid Dahl. Hi, Ingrid.
Hi, Freesia. Hi, Sam. Lovely to be here.
We're so excited. This has been, you know what? Okay. I've been saying this a lot lately. This has been a long time in the making. And so now I'm starting to realize me is problem in scheduling. It's fine. But we're delighted. This is, I think we started this conversation 6 months ago, maybe. You were so very generous for sticking with me.
I will always stick with you, Freesia.
You're
a Bay Area sister, too. Area sis.
Listen, I love that you claim that because as we will find out, you are not from here.
No, only been here 15 years, but yeah, not from here.
That's a lot of years, honestly. That is longer than our kids have lived here, so you have more claim to it than they do. Lots of kids, actually.
That's hilarious.
You outrank them all.
Mm.
For those new to this podcast, on this show, we bring on AAPI guests and they talk about growing up Asian in America through the lens of food and childhood food stories. Ingrid, I love your dish. Full transparency, at the time of this recording, we are about to release another beef stew recipe, but the stories are different. And that's the point of the show, like making similar dishes at home, but having very different stories that go along with them. So I'm super excited to talk about this. Also, it never hurts to have a second, third, 15th beef stew recipe.
Oh my God, at all.
Let's get into this, please. Who was making this for you? Where were you eating it? Are you still eating it? Is someone still making it for you?
Such a beautiful question. So my mom would make what we call the Asian beef stew. And what's fascinating is my mother, I learned almost before she died that she actually didn't like cooking. I always thought she did because she would say, "Do you taste the love in the stew? Do you taste the love in the food?" And she would call the beef stew often like the welcome homecoming. So it's like you're being welcomed back home. You know, and for somebody who was, a touring musician or out on the road or who moved to San Francisco, and then my parents moved back to Taipei, Taiwan. Homecoming was in a lot of different places for the family, but it was always this taste of love. And so now that I don't have my mother, who passed a few years ago, which honestly inspired me to write my book, I absolutely make this stew, and it feels so warming and so delicious, and it feels like a hug coming from inside my stomach. Yeah.
I love this.
I'm happy to talk more about the recipe because, man, everyone who's had it, who does enjoy like beef, because not everybody eats beef, are obsessed with it. Like, Ingrid, are you going to make the stew? Like, when is the stew coming?
Okay, talk about it. Yeah, let's talk about this because we were saying, what is a traditional Chinese beef stew or Taiwanese beef stew? Like, what is an Asian beef stew? What is an Asian American beef stew?
Yes.
Where, it sort of is like, is this really Asian? Is it not? Tell us about your mom's.
Yeah, I would say it's a Taiwanese American kind of stew. It's definitely spicy. So here are some of the things that happen with this delicious meal. My mother and I would often try searching for beef shank. So when I was growing up in the 80s, going to a ShopRite in central New Jersey, there was a lot of looks, especially when you ordered like a whole fish with a head still on, and things like beef shank, which is basically part of the back of the hind leg of a cow, but it's sliced where you're getting both the beef and the bone, hence the shank. Oftentimes, people weren't getting that kind of cut, maybe just the meat part, but not the bone.
Mm-hmm. I had no idea what a shank was until this moment. Just gonna not gonna lie.
It makes it extra delicious. So what we would often have to end up getting is stew meat, which you can find. It's like already kind of cut up, sort of can get super tender depending on how you cook it and the quality. But beef shank is what's up. Other people might do oxtail, also delicious. But so here we go. When you're able, you get a really nice fatty beef shank, like 2-pounder or something. And before you do anything, you pat it dry and salt and pepper it. And then inside a little sesame, maybe peanut oil, or if you just want to use olive oil, you get the aromatics going, which is big chunky slices of ginger, garlic. You're going to get some Szechuan peppercorns, of course. Yummy, yummy. Get that tingly yum yum. And star anise, like the big chunky one. So it almost has like a hint of like a Vietnamese stew with that, but it's still quite different because once you get those aromatics going, you put that delicious beef shank, get it nice and kind of caramelized on both sides. And then you add about, I don't know, 3/4 cup, I'm going to say, of what I like is gluten-free soy sauce because I'm an Asian with a gluten problem.
Wait, me too.
It sucks.
Oh my God, we're gonna come back to this, but yes, Asians with a gluten problem. Okay, there's a whole
ouch. Yeah.
Oh God,
it's so sad. But for those of you who don't suffer from a gluten problem, probably like a dark soy sauce would be great. But alas, tamari or gluten free. So about 3/4 cup of that, then a 3/4 cup of red wine goes into it as well.
I like where this is going.
I know. And then a bunch of cremini mushrooms. So you cut up the cremini mushrooms, you throw that in, and you basically cook the stew with a little bit of water. You kind of feel it out until it gets very, very tender. So this could take hours, depending on the amount and the amount of meat you have. And then when you're feeling like, okay, things are feeling good, they're smelling good, then you add the following vegetables. So my mom would use cut up celery, carrots, and potatoes. So it's almost like the American part is the potatoes. And of course, the Asian part is you would always have this dish when it was completed with, sushi, Chinese, Asian rice, like, of course.
Yeah.
Or, in Taiwan, this would be niro mian. So it would be a noodle dish that is very famous, niro mian, beef noodle soup. But this was the Americanized version because you have potatoes, carrots, celery, and then, of course, over rice with ginger and all these things. Yeah, and this dish, the very most important thing is at the very end, when you're cooking the vegetables, you add 2 pretty large heapings of this special, and I don't know the pronunciation of it, but it's like a chili bean paste. That's not quite a paste. It almost feels like a little jammy in texture. But in the Asian store market, it's like a blue label with a red lid. And that's how we always remembered it. It looks like a gentleman wearing a little kind of rice hat, doing something in the fields. And you always looked for that thing because that's in it. So it's very spicy. So it has this look when it's all said and done, and you can cut up the meat or let it fall off the bone and cut it up. You leave the bone in there. But when you serve it, it has this beautiful kind of texture of this broth with this like darkness and the red from the cooked wine and that chili sauce. And it's just so spicy and so warming with every delicious bite.
Okay.
Are you hungry? I'm actually really hungry right now.
A rare time where we ate lunch first.
It almost
never happens.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter though. Because listeners, people that come on the show, they fill out a little questionnaire. And so we know what we're headed into before we start talking. And when you're like, okay, beef stew, I was like, great, love it. Beef stew. This is not what I imagined. You could have brought me any beef stew and I would have celebrated because who doesn't love a good beef stew? But this is some next level shit. This sounds incredible.
It's freaking good. Yeah. And my mom was funny because, when you're in America and New Jersey, there are also these things that my mom would do. She'd kind of like grab different things from the refrigerator or squeeze some ketchup in it. Like it was just kind of a funny thing. So every time was a tiny bit different. But that authentic way, oh man, it is just that perfect amount of that spice, but it's like your soul is dancing because your body is singing from food and you're like, oh, you know that feeling? That's like, it's so good. Sometimes the best dumpling you've ever had, you're like, oh,
soul is dancing, singing from the inside. Tell me you're a writer without telling me you're a writer. Ingrid, do you know where your mom came up with? Like, was this something she ate as a child and then tweaked? Was this like a thing of her own creation? How did this come to be?
I wish I could ask her the actual origin, but what I do know is we would go back to Taipei pretty regularly. And one of the first stops that she and I would do, especially if father was busy or he wasn't with us at the time, would be looking for a street vendor that sold beef noodle soup. So it's had that same kind of big vat of, meat cooking for a long time, but in this way. And that same kind of spiciness, we would add some more of that kind of chili paste into it. And so the memories that I'm having of my mother, where it might have come from, is these sort of street vendors and stalls that make exceptional niero mian with the noodles that are hand pulled. And I think probably growing up in New Jersey, there was a limitation of getting noodles like that. And given that my mom was like, oh, I didn't really like cooking, I did it out of necessity, which just shocked me because I'm quite the cook. And I love people eating my food and feeling the love. But yeah, I think that was kind of like her, well, I'm hungry, I want niero mian, but I have rice and there's always these potatoes and other kinds of foods around. But the thing that she never really did, which I like to add, is a little bit more of the star anise and cilantro. Just kind of like adds these different elements or a lot of fresh chopped scallions on top. So you're going to kind of getting these like extra vibrant elevation. So I guess each of us have adapted this dish from probably niero mian to my mom's Asian beef stew to this version, which almost feels more Vietnamese with Taiwan at the heart.
Oh my God, I love it. I want to eat it right now.
I do too. It takes 2 days.
2 days?
Yeah, I forgot to say that. So the day one is really the meat part, and it cooks and cooks and cooks, and then you let it cool, and then you put it in the fridge, and you kind of let it congeal overnight. So it's like, and then the second cooking is like you basically bring it back up to a boil and then add those vegetables into it to cook. I think once she used turnip too, and that was actually kind of good, like daikon in it. I was like, ooh.
Ooh.
Yeah, that was awesome. She was just, again, a random, like, we got daikon, put it in.
Yeah.
It was good. But yeah, so it's actually a 2-day thing. And a lot of people who make niero mian who are playing around with these kits and things, I think a lot of them have said, yes, it takes a long time. Sort of like pho. I think pho takes a long time. And people who make really good pho, they're like, this is a pain in the ass dish to make. And I feel you, but man, is it worth it.
Okay. Noted, Sam. Take note. We got to plan this.
Got it.
This is not 30 minutes in the Instant Pot.
Nope.
Although if someone has a recipe that's 30 minutes in an Instant Pot, please let us know.
It can be done. It can be done.
Okay. Oh, challenge accepted. Okay, Ingrid, your mom, Taiwanese. Your dad, not.
He's not.
Yeah.
No, but the irony, even though my father is European mutt American, he speaks better Mandarin than me and my brother.
Oh.
I know. So he's lived in Taipei with my mother. He loves Taiwan. He misses it. He's back in New Jersey. But yeah, his Mandarin's really good. And it really started because my mother's parents, when they were young, my mom was a graduate student. My father was undergrad. Ooh.
Oh.
And I know. Her parents were like, you are not going to marry a white barbarian, is what he was called.
Sure.
I think they saw him as lower class, like all the things, right? You can't have race, you get to play the class card. I don't know. I just think my dad is so fascinating because he was like, well, I'm going to save up money and work 3 jobs over the summer and fly to Taipei, Taiwan, where I've never been, with knowledge of the language. And so that summer, he really learned as much as he could and continued. And my first language was Mandarin because both my parents spoke the language.
Oh.
Yeah. And he still laughs. He's like, yeah, you're in preschool. We had cheat sheets. Like, this means she has to go to the bathroom. You'll want to know what that one means. Yeah. So he's an interesting character in my life.
That's really incredible. I mean, I was going to ask, like, how was he with this beef stew and also probably the Asian foods that your mom were making? But obviously now we know, like, he was fine.
Oh, yeah. He loves danbang and, scallion pancakes. He makes it. Yeah, he like makes mapo tofu really well. He's mastered the kind of like saturating sliced pork in egg white and then doing a mixture of potato starch instead of cornstarch and water and making this like shengan gyros, which is like a bean curd sliced pork and celery dish that's like mind-blowing with these Chinese peppers. Like my dad is very good, or sauteed spinach or bok choy with garlic. And we're a cooking kind of family. We share cookbooks all the time and videos of each other making dumplings. So yeah.
Except for your mom, who didn't like it.
She didn't
This
like
is incredible.
So funny.
When is your dad's cooking YouTube launching? Because I think we need to know all of these things.
He'd be so popular probably as this like white guy who speaks Mandarin and is making these amazing dishes, and he loves it. He's like wears an apron and dances a little bit. Yeah, he's cute.
Oh my God, this is adorable.
I'll let him know. I'll be like, hey, Sam and Frisia.
Yeah.
From Worst Quality Crab said you should start a cooking show.
Yeah. Also, I can probably name 10 other people right now who would watch this.
Right? Like he's speaking Mandarin and he has a little wah-wah on his little... Yeah, he's like a whole... He's like Taiwanese, I swear.
Like being very good at it, I want this. I would consume this content.
Delicious.
And the food. I would consume the food too. I'll take that.
Cute.
What was that like for you, right? Because I think that we've had guests on the show in the past and just the stereotype of like an Asian mom and a white man, and maybe there's like she is bending to his cooking and that sort of thing. But this seems entirely the other way. Were you aware of any of this, first of all? And like, what do you think that kind of says about them and what it meant for you? And
yeah, my parents were really badass and bold. They fell in love with each other in a double date gone wrong. And
say more.
Yeah. So my dad was going on a blind date, I guess, with my mom's roommate. And my mom was going on a blind date with, I guess, his roommate. And my dad walks into my mom and her dorm mate's dorm room, I suppose, and looks at this, like, what he describes as this beautiful Chinese calligraphy, a poem. And he's like, wow, what does this say? So my mom explains it, and he's like, what famous poet or philosopher wrote that? And she just looked at him. She was like, I did, like, dumbass. And that was kind of the hook. Like, he was immediately like, oh my God, you are so dope. And so long after their other dates had left, they went on this very long walk into the night talking about like their dreams and aspirations and values and things that they believed in and what they were hoping for in a future life, and found such alignment. And my dad ran back to his dorm after dropping her off and wrote in his diary, because he told me this and I put it in the book, tonight I met the most wonderful girl or woman in the world. And I think he was shocked to know that my mom felt the same. And their families were really opposed to the match, and they had to fight for their love. My mom was a computer science graduate student studying AI in the 70s, and she became a tech pioneer. She was the breadwinner. My father also, ran his small company, and he also worked, but it was really my mom who was the leader, the breadwinner of the family. She often was traveling. So I think I grew up from a really amazing switch of social family dynamics in one way, and like grappled with a lot of contradictions to that from cultural or even like religious impositions. I was like, wait, what? Because in so many ways, my parents were so opposite. My dad was dancing and eating and cooking. He also is a great cook, as I've mentioned. And my mom was out there slinging whiskey sours in Copenhagen, landing this amazing situational deal around like 3G mobility. She would talk about like, oh yeah, in the future, people are going to want their phones to do all these things, like, control their TV and their window blinds. I'm like, why would people want that? And she was like, they don't, but they will. And that's what I'm designing. Wow. So yeah, my parents really broke a lot of stereotypes, racial and gendered stereotypes.
Was that something you felt in the moment or is more hindsight?
Well, I definitely noticed there was like few times where I'd go over someone's house and there were very few people of color where I grew up in central Jersey. It was not necessarily a wealthy town. There was quite a range. And I remember going to a young girl's house after school for whatever reason, and her mom was home. And I just remember being like, oh my God, how cool your mom's home. Is she back from a business trip? Like, she's here early too. Like, could she get in? Did she take a red eye? Like, I knew these things, right? And this girl, she was kind of a little shit. She was like, my mom's always here. What do you mean? And I'm like, what do you mean she's always here? I'm like, where's your dad? He should be taking care of us. And she's like, my dad's at work. So I think I knew as a young kid that my family was different in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
What I was surprised by is how comfortable they were over the years with that kind of exposure. Like, it played a toll on them. So by the time I got to be this like badass, bold feminist, they were terrified about how that made them appear to others. They were really upset when I came out. My mom had a really hard time with my queerness, which eventually does come together. Like, even the cover of my book, there's all these things that keep my mom and I apart, but at the very end, we come together.
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those things to have the awareness that even if you start out bold, you'd be surprised how sometimes you can go back into a cage that is of your own making. You'd be surprised how much work it takes to unlearn those behaviors and to be as curious and push that comfort zone as much as you can. Like, every year it wants to get tighter, and more confining. And I don't have kids by choice, but I want to be a person who's always being challenged and growing and encouraging people to live their truth and to be bold, because, life is really short. And my mom and I had really important conversations towards the end of her life where I was like, if I had done those things just to make you happy, the cost would be my entire life. I'd be unhappy. Is that what you really want? And most parents can't actually truly say, yeah, I want you to be miserable your whole life, just so I kind of have a little bit of this spark. And I think those bigger conversations over delicious food, because that's how we come together, is part of us living. Her idiom was, you have to go through fire multiple times, especially in the year of the fire horse. This is an exciting one, to become pure gold. And to me, every challenge like that, her rejection or abandonment of me being queer, but us coming together and reconciling, is important, because these are stories that are real. And there are stories that inspire, and that they encourage us to say, hey, what would it be like if I took this risk, even if the fear is keeping me from doing it? What if I just put fear aside? And I think this is a time more and more to put fear aside.
Oh, for sure. I think what you said is so interesting in thinking about your perception of your mom as a kid and the things that she was doing. And the things that, if any woman doing them right now is still, they're still sort of at the foreground of things. And, they're like a woman to be championed and cheered for. And she was doing it in the 80s, 90s. And then to think that there were parts of her that were very much stuck in gender norms or sexuality norms and things. Like, it's a really interesting thing to think about, the ways in which someone might seem very progressive or forward thinking or whatever, but like only in a certain lane.
Yeah.
And the way that those kind of exist in the same person is often really hard to reconcile.
Yeah, she struggled.
What was that like for you?
It was confusing. I was often confused. I was trying to connect with my mom, or, maybe I didn't ask her the right questions, but I would try to interrupt moments that I felt were like, ooh, she's trying to re-record her outgoing voice message. Why is she doing that? Why is she spending like an hour on a Saturday? And she keeps thinking she's tripping up, but she's not. What is it? Oh, it's her accent. She's trying to erase the otherness that her accent exposes. maybe I wasn't thinking it exactly like that. You know, it's my adult version. But that's what was so painful. Was like, oh my God, my mom, I'm like witnessing that shame, witnessing the erasure, the attempted self-erasure of culture, of uniqueness, you know, of somebody who can speak 2 languages so fluently, she can translate live. This is somebody who's trying to erase that power, superpower. And in that moment, just to kind of illustrate some of these difficult moments as, you know, as a young person, young kid going and be like, Mom, you know, who cares? Like, you sound great. Like, you know, and don't let the bastards get you down, because that was like a phrase that she would always use. So I was about to say that to her. And I just, you know, wanted her to pick me up and hug me and see that I loved her so much, and maybe drop the whole thing and we'd go get ice cream, because she loved a swirl cone so much. We used to call them Judy bites, because she'd be like, I just want to lick. And just bite it. And the whole thing would be gone. You're like, what do you mean? It's gone. I thought, did you not want one? Like, let's get 2 next time. But in that awful moment where then I watched another thing happen, the shock and surprise of being found out in the moment of trying to erase her voice and her language and her otherness immediately was replaced by shame. And I saw it for a second. And then anger. Anger stood right in front and protected all of those layers and told her little daughter, like, to get out of here, you know, expel, reject, push away. The very young, innocent person who maybe you could have had a connective moment or liberating experience, but that's what shame, anger, racism, racialized sexism robs us of. And I watched that, and it was multi-layered. But, you know, my mom too, you know, she was a tech pioneer who every time she would advance, they would hire a low, mediocre white man between her and her boss over and over again, her entire career. And I'd find her in her bedroom just crying in bed for days. And, you know, you kind of watch the silent toll, pain, like, wow, this is so wrong. You know, and she had one male leader actually apologize to her, like admit that that's what he did and apologize. And that's unique.
Yeah.
Totally. Like, yeah, applaud you, but you, the one of like, you know, billions of others who, you know, don't really care. But yeah, seeing that, I felt like it was important also to expose that, because my mom was so full of life, the life of a party, a fashionista, and this incredible leader of like 100 software engineers, you know, going to like Mother-Daughter Day or whatever, bring your kid to work. It was like people just coming up to me as like a 10-year-old being like, your mom is the best boss I've ever had. Like, no one needs to say that shit. And like there was a lunch and they had to like turn people away because so many people wanted to go. It was remarkable, and people found that superpower again. So threatening. And I think we have to remember that we have so much more power than we realize, that these little microaggressions, these little systems are there to try to make us feel smaller than we are when it's just a lie. But it got into her, into her psyche, into her soul, until way later, when she really was much more liberated and accepting and kind of let a lot of that crap go. It's crap, you know?
It really is.
It's a lot of crap.
How did this play out in you? Because, you know, we talked about the book a little bit, but Courage to Live Boldly, where was that in you or for you?
You know, when I first came up to my mom, it was over the phone, which is kind of weird. And I was at work. All the conditions, when you go back, you're like, what?
Ingrid, why?
I don't know. But it was like on a landline. Like, I can picture the phone in great detail. And
was it see-through and neon is what I need to know.
No, it wasn't. It was totally like, you know, an academic, ancient-looking phone from like the 70s or something. And it's like mid-2000s. You're like, whoa. Anyway, for whatever reason, I call my mom. And then I'm like, ooh, I actually hope she doesn't pick up. And right as I'm about to hang up, she picks up. Of course, we're all been there. We're like, wait, what am I doing? Oh, I just can't back out now.
Yeah.
And the reason why I guess I was calling her is because the night before, my girlfriend at the time, who everyone was always like, your friend, had slept over because we stayed really late watching movies. My dad loves movies. And she slept over and we were like in our street clothes and, uncomfortable because we're at my super religious parents' house. And I just remember waking up in the morning with my mom barging into the room and grabbing my arm that's like just kind of over my girlfriend's waist and ripping it off her waist. And it was just alarming. That's how I woke up, like, what? And my girlfriend at the time was really understanding because her parents were difficult too. And I just was like, I think I need to tell my mom, you're not just a friend. And you don't have to like protect me by ripping my arm off of your body because I actually want to have my arm around you and so do you. Maybe she thinks that was a mistake. I don't know. So that's, I guess, why I called her the next day. And I remember very clearly, and it's in the book where I'm like, Mom, I have to tell you something. Like, she is not just my friend. And she's like, I need you to stop right here, right where you are. Because if you're about to say what I think you're about to say, you should know that you will be disowned from the family. And I'm like 25 or 26 at this point. I'm like, Mom, you can't mean that. Like, I'm also an adult. What? She's like, I do mean that. And then she just says bye, and I hear click. She hangs up the phone on me. And then we don't talk about it, even though I've had, being in an all-girl band and obviously being a super out lesbian. And to her, like, I'm just promiscuous. It's a phase and it'll end. But to your question, I think being faced with those kinds of rejection actualized, like the threat of rejection and abandonment, and then it being so close to it being actualized, and then it actually happening when I get engaged and my mom and I don't talk. Like, she's like, I want you to marry a man. I will do whatever I can to like rectify an old boyfriend of yours to maybe fall in love with you again. Like, you need to get married. You need to have kids. Like, we need to intervene. I'm like, no, like, this is who I am. I'm going to marry this person. She's amazing. And you know it. She's amazing. Like, having that actualized, I think, is important in my story because at least I had the fortune of my mom coming around. I think my mom realized I could live a life where I have no daughter and it's really not her choice, that's mine. And is that something I really want to choose? Just because she's gay? I see her, she's married, she's happy. Her and her wife just bought a house in San Francisco. Shit, I'm going to miss out. And so I'm really amazed at the boldness my mom kind of brought back into her heart chakra. And she's the one, and I had an open heart to it. So did my wife. And she was like, I want to come to your home for Christmas. And we said, oh, of course. We haven't talked in like a year, but sure. And my brother came out, who's always been my rock, and he's always supported me. He's the best. He came and he did this like very ceremonial thing at the wedding. It was so special. And she and my father came and she gave an unprompted speech, a toast, where she said, I'm so sorry. We were short-sighted and we love you and we want to be part of your life. And before she could finish, I was leapt out of my chair and ran to her and hugged her. And before she went back to Taiwan with my dad that trip, I caught her walking down the street when we were like window shopping and saw her arm in arm with my wife. And I'll never forget that. The boldness and the vulnerability and the love and the forgiveness, it's all sort of in this epicenter, and we need to find it and bring it back. Kind of say, gosh, how boldness can be just simply love, or just simply forgiveness, or simply, I have no grudges by your own choices, and I've been just here waiting to see if you'd come back because I would always accept you back. That's powerful, unconditional love that I think my mom always wanted in her own life, always said that she would give, but that wasn't true in action. But I'm proud because I think my boldness full circle said, no, I will love you unconditionally, no matter what. And I think that helped change a lot of intergenerational arenas of pain and healing, which we did a lot of towards the end of her life.
This is so beautiful, Ingrid.
Yeah,
no, it's fine. It's fine.
Is it? I'm sorry.
No. Listeners, I'm crying. Surprise, surprise. She cries at everything.
So touching. I love it.
No, it's so beautiful. And we should stop there, but we won't. We won't. Did she make you the beef stew to reconcile is what I need to know.
Pretty sure she did during that trip.
Wow.
Yeah. Or I probably made it for her because at that point I was, cooking a lot for my parents. And, there's a lot around food too. One of my mom's favorite foods was like lasagna.
Your mom is a Garfield? We call all lasagna lovers in our house Garfields.
And she's like a teenager. She spent a summer with us like a year or two after the reconciliation. She ate us hand over foot. She wanted hamburgers all the time. This is when she has cancer and you're like, what is happening? Mom, you ate like a week's worth of food in a day. She's like, yeah, I'm hungry. When's dinner? What are you making? I'm like, wow. But the most tender moment was finally getting to Taipei the second time during COVID where the borders were closed. And my mom is actively dying of cancer. I finally get a special entry visa. I finally get into my quarantine hotel for the second year in a row. And I get this additional opportunity because my mother's status is dying in a hospital at the time where the police can arrange for me to get a PCR test. And if during the day, even though these hospitals are filled with people trying to get tests, if they are able to quickly get that approved and it's negative, then I get escorted in a quarantine taxi to my mom's hospital room for 1 hour. It was every day, you never knew. And so the one time it was able to happen, I had a window where I could Uber Eats, one of the best like lasagna places in Taipei. So I had it kind of on cue, order this slice of lasagna. It shows up. I'm escorted down to the quarantine taxi level. I get to the hospital. It's this whole ordeal. I'm sprayed top to bottom with whoever knows what it is. Finally go through all the checkpoints. My dad meets me. I get to her room. She's frail. She's had a lot of different surgeries to keep her alive. She's hungry as usual. And she sees me and I have the lasagna. It's still warm. I'm like, Mom, I brought lasagna. And she's like, you brought lasagna. So she kind of leans up and tries to grab a fork, she tries. And this was the most heartbreaking because she wants it so bad. She knows it tastes so good, but she had just had the surgery where it's like impacted her throat. And there's like sores and stuff.
Yeah.
So she eats it and can't quite taste it and just starts crying.
Oh.
I know. And I'm just in despair. I'm like, oh my God, I finally got here. My mom, I fail. But I think even though she's going through so much suffering, there's this love, and food is so important. And the amazing thing is somehow the lasagna ends up in my dad's hands and it's scarfed down like Garfield. It's gone. And I'm like, whoa, Dad, that was for Mom. He's like, Ingrid, I'm starving. And you're like, yes, the caretakers. The caretakers need that kind of thoughtfulness and love too. And I didn't even think about that because it was only about Mom, the person who's dying. But yeah, I think it's amazing now when we had a memorial or a couple or celebrations of life for my mom, we've had, big sheets of lasagna so people can actually enjoy it the way she would have loved it. Food, man, is a tender extension of love.
I love this. I also just had the idea that is lasagna the new cake? Layers, rectangular, slices.
The sheet cake?
The sheet cake, yeah. Because we have friends and a child that don't really like sweet things. Not to pivot this away from your very beautiful, very tender, very touching story. But maybe I must, or else I am just a weepy mess. But lasagna is the new cake. I love this.
So delicious.
How did your mom come to love lasagna?
I think it's, her being in America for so long, and burgers.
Did she make it?
No.
Were these?
She did not.
I think that's what I'm curious about, right? Like when we talk about what is food to all of us, like where both of your parents cooked and sort of your intersection of that and how you learn to cook. And it's so interesting to me, the things that people that are not of their childhood culture, but they come to love and are like synonymous with them and how that works. And like, what is the first introduction? And then what does that mean to you? Like, do you love lasagna? Do you love,
I do. I love all the things my mom loved. I eat more egg tarts now than ever. That was her favorite, Asian dessert. But man, I mean, the woman could eat. She loved strawberry shortcake and, definitely a whole fish. Like that was it. That was maybe one of her number ones. She never really liked my dad's Scandinavian kind of food.
I don't think she's alone in that one.
Yeah, he'd be like,
things.
Yeah, I baked this thing and, cream spinach with cod. And you're like, potatoes.
Yeah.
Boiled. You're like, But yeah, no, she loved burgers and fries and lasagna. And I just love my mom's appetite. I definitely am her daughter. I love eating.
Did you learn to cook from your parents?
Yeah, that's why I'm so surprised that she was like, ugh, cooking sucks. Necessity. I'm like, what? I learned a lot actually after, though. Coming out to California, meeting a lot of women who were peers of mine who are also in nonprofit or corporate, and having like collabs with them. We would look at Alison Roman or Ottolenghi. And there's just so much food inspiration, out here. I think having these collabs and learning to make very complex, fascinating foods from all the different parts of the world, it just has made me a much more expansive cook, chef. My taste buds, like I love traveling, I love eating, and then I love buying spices from where I'm at. Ooh, how could I dress this up? How could I mix this Szechuan and Mexican flavor? How do I use these different chilies from these different parts of the world? Ooh, how could we do a Greek version of that that's connecting to Persian food? You know what I mean? I think it's kind of the intersectionality.
Where's your YouTube channel? I would watch all this content.
Oh, thank you. I've thought about it sometimes, but yeah, I think there's just so many interesting ways being Hapa, mixed, queer at these like in-betweens where you see, ooh, actually, we could mix this and this. Maybe that's part of like the experience. It just feels so natural to do that.
I was just thinking like we haven't really touched on your Hapa identity and what that was like for you as a kid growing up, but everything you just mentioned is like these intersectionalities that you are, I'm going to guess, are much more acutely aware of than say your, straight Chinese man. I'm looking at one. Sorry.
Poor Sam.
Not a random call out. Just,
It's fine.
So I defend the husband and no one else.
That's so cute.
What was that like in our last few minutes? A lot of the book is about this, but just in our last few minutes, like you were the oldest grandchild, the first Hapa grandchild in a not particularly diverse place, but in a time where like we were starting to be more common, or at least here for me, like I wasn't the only one. What was that like for you?
It was interesting, in central New Jersey, as I mentioned earlier, really wasn't diverse. It was very homogenous, very white, and, really wasn't the best school, like public school I went to. It was just kind of a hot mess, if you ask me. And I really kind of learned at an early age that, people asking, what are you, is not a question of curiosity. It's a demand to know. Always being reminded I was different. I was a half piece of shit. I was, like from both sides, from both the white side and the Asian side. It was amazing. And then you go to Taipei, which was like my mom's magical city that I love, that it was like my spoken language. I could picture everything and smell everything. It was just so vibrant and fast and free, which got me, I think, into riding horses because it felt similarly in some ways. Back in New Jersey, I have a whole horse chapter and tattoo, and and then the musician chapters. But I think as I got older, it was uncomfortable when people, when I come back home, would remark on how I looked Western. And my Western look would be called beautiful, but at the same time, I'd look around and I would see all these advertisements, both, lived or projected, around double eyelid surgery, around skin bleaching and skin whitening, around how to look more hapa or mixed because whiteness equaled beauty. That was really tough. It was really hard to navigate that, you almost being like a walking advertisement for the very thing that you don't believe in. That was really hard. And then, people kind of reminding you that, well, you're American. You're not really of the family, because if you were, you would live here and you would be able to read the language. You're illiterate. You're mixed blood child. And I think what I had going for me is that my nine-eye and all of the amazing warrior badass spirits of my family female lineage, incredibly powerful, educated, and speak their mind. And she was like, that's bullshit. She's my daughter. She's the first one. She's a who. I don't care. And I was like, hell yeah, Nine-Eye. And Nine-Eye loved eating food too. She loved really good food and she could cook. But what she would do is she would train, I guess, her cook, because I think it was a lot more common in Asia to have like somebody else from a less desirable area or whatever who's coming to make money. It was a very strange dynamic that I didn't grow up with in the States. So it was like, what is this servitude? I mean, is this okay? Like, this feels weird. And she lives here in like a small room. Like, I don't know. Like, I always give her money because I feel like overwhelmed by the whole thing. But my nine-eye taught this amazing woman to cook the meals that she liked. And so we always had amazing homemade food, but no one ever wanted me to be in the kitchen with this, I will call her a chef, to learn these dishes. And I would try to sneak in or help clean up, and I'd always get yelled at. So I think there's also something magical about food in the kitchen, and like somehow this person would go out into the world and bring back these things. And behind this door, she'd have all this magic happening. And then suddenly we'd sit down and like 8 dishes of the most amazing, delicious food would appear. It felt like magic. So maybe that also instilled in me something around, the love of food and making food and creating that magic for other people to enjoy.
That's incredible. That's such an magical, lovely way to look at, like, I guess cooking in general, but just the idea that like you were a kid and you weren't allowed to go into this very secret place where good things happen, and then, delicious things come out and you're like, oh, what happens in there? And everyone was like, no, don't go in there. That's for the help. That's for other people, not you. Ingrid, we are almost at time. This has been so delightful.
Same. Thank you.
I think we could keep talking to you all day. We should just hang out and talk also.
We need to go eat. We need to go eat. I'm like so hungry now. We need to go
eat. We need 2 days to make this beef stew. I'm ready.
Oh, I'd love to, actually. How about we make a date?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't even have to do it?
No, I'll make it.
Okay. I was going to say it's currently 80 degrees out, but I'm committed to this. Like, I will do it anyway. When it's cooler, which is probably knowing here in like a week.
I know. Totally.
This has been so wonderful. I have to admit, I am not finished with your book, but I am reading it and it is lovely.
Enjoy it.
And no, I do. Well, and you were so kind. You sent it to me the whole 6 months ago and I was like, I got time. And then and it's because it's a PDF and I'm like, boo, screens are bad for me, except for when I'm online shopping. So I should just go buy it is really where this is headed. I should just go buy the hard copy. I know that it's on Waverly. Shout out on Waverly. Haven't gone enough. I've gone 2 whole episodes and I haven't mentioned them. So here we go. Listeners, go buy this book. It is lovely. Ingrid is lovely. The stories in it, you've told some of them today, but it is so nice to hear them again. And it's interesting to me. And I think this is where I soft launch the Hapa podcast that, you're eventually going to be a guest on, because you're going to actually prod me to do it, because that's how that works. But it's so interesting for me, especially because all of the Hapas that I know, not all of them, a lot of them, I grew up with here. And so we have very similar experiences. And so every time I talk to a Hapa that grew up on the East Coast, in the Midwest, Virginia, whatever, like the experience is different and also very similar. Like there are certain points where I know that feeling. And also I'm like, wait, what? Oh, because there were, I had a 5th grade class of 20 people and I could name at least 3 others. Right. So it's a very different experience. But I look forward to talking with you about that on another venue.
Yes.
Ingrid, tell the people where they can find you and your work and your book.
Yes, happy to. So it's pretty easy. It's sunshiningonmorningsnow.com, and you can find out all the ways where you can buy and order the book. And Ingrid Dahl, H-U, Dahl.com for all my leadership and grief coaching offerings and speaking opportunities. I'm also on Instagram. It's at Ingrid Dahl, at Sunshining on Morning Snow, and on LinkedIn. So please reach out to me. Even in the back of the book, actually, I offer my email address. So it's hello@ingridhudahl.com. So be in touch.
Yeah. Get at her, people. Whatever you need, get at her. She's great. Listeners, thank you so much for being here. If you want to find us, you can find us at worstqualitycrab.com, on Instagram at worstqualitycrab. And if you want to email us for whatever reason, very few people do, worstqualitycrabpod@gmail.com. We will get up a recipe from Ingrid if you would like to endeavor 2 days to make this yourself. I'm guessing that some of you will, and it will be worth it. We are among that. Definitely going to happen after you make it the first time, so that we know, we need to know what we're going for, I think what is baseline. But look for that on our website and then let us know if you're making it. Also, if you've got another beef stew recipe out there, listeners, we'll take them. Give us what you got. And until next time, we'll talk to everybody then. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.